Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to sit down and talk about the latest series being featured on HBO Max, or at least one of them anyway, and that is The Last of Us, or The Last of Us, which is based off of the video game franchise that many people love, including myself, at least for part one. It is indeed focusing on that part for this season anyway. Who knows what will bring season 2? It might even divert to something else. We'll have to wait and see. But it is indeed featuring Joel, of course, Ellie, and all the other characters that you've seen in part one so far. I am indeed going to be talking about the first 2 episodes so far, and I'm going to be talking about what I liked about it, and also what I dislike about it, and spoilers somewhere at some point. And right before I talk about spoilers, I'll be giving it a rating. So that's how it's going to go for this review today. So first off, I do for the most part like it, and what I really did like about it most is just the tone that it really gives off for this series. I think it really fits well as a TV series. I think The Last of Us, while a video game, it definitely had that cinematic feel to it. It definitely felt like a movie, a very interactive movie that you can shoot in third person, have that very likable and memorable dialogue with different characters such as Joel, Ellie, and hopefully Billy later on, so on and so forth. Even Tess, of course. All the important characters are featured in here, including Marlene and such like that. But you also have newer characters, which I don't mind either. But back onto what I liked most, which was the tone, right? Just that tone is really done well here. And while at that, I think the live action series does a really good job at adding different scenes that you've never seen before in the video game to add, sort of that context of it. It really adds to the experience of The Last of Us, right? Which is featuring the fungus or fungi, the cordyceps, right? Fungi, and which essentially takes over a ant or any insect really within the vicinity of the spore spreading, and allows itself to take control of those insects, and those insects eventually die, and sort of the mushrooms, so to say, or the spores somehow just get released once more, and thus the cycle continues, right, until I guess the rest of the colony of ants kind of go away, or whatever insect goes away. They may even take over different plants. I'm not too sure about that part, but the concept of it is pretty fascinating at that, with the fact that they can take over things. And the whole concept of The Last of Us comes from that. That's like the main central theme here, which is just that fungus or fungi taking over, this time human bodies, because it is, it does sound possible, but we haven't yet seen anything like that, thankfully. But yet this has become a reality in this show, right, within the world of this show, The Last of Us, or video game. And we can see it kind of come to light of what it's like to face this sort of pandemic, or just this this type of post-apocalyptic world because of the fungus. And there are new ideas and new concepts being introduced into this show as well. So it's not just a one-to-one experience with a video game. There are different things just coming into this incarnation of The Last of Us Part 1, and yet it does still maintain that tone, the magic, if you will, of what made The Last of Us so much lovable as a video game in the first place, right? And that gets nailed very much well within this show. Many things just do a really good job, like the actors, for example, right? The casting of the actors is just well thought out and well picked, in my opinion. Now first, yes, when Pedro Pascal was revealed to be playing Joel, I admittedly at first wanted to see Hugh Jackman take the role of Joel, but I think Pedro Pascal here did a wonderful job as Joel, portraying just that gritty, just old man that's faced a very tough, tragic loss, and faced 20 years of that apocalyptic world. So of course he's gonna feel this way as we see him 20 years later. So Pascal just did a very, very good job portraying that character, bringing out that in Joel. And, despite having to see Pascal in different many roles at this point, including The Mandalorian, here, man, he just able to nail Joel thus far anyway, at least in the first 2 episodes. Things like that just really add up to the experience of the live action series of The Last of Us. All the other important bits are in there, so obviously you'll see the stuff from the video game, just like the truck driving as the apocalypse was happening, the infection was spreading, and you see also like additional things like the neighbors taking in the infection or the pandemic, if you will, from one of the neighbors, right? Who would have thought that neighbor was the infected one, and then turns out just biting people and spreading and stuff like that. So things like that, you kind of know what's coming, right, as you play the video game. But I'll try not to spoil it too much for those who are completely fresh into it. So while it does a really good job, pleasing, I think, the fans, the players, right, who actually played the game, I think it will definitely a good job luring in newcomers as well, because of these scenes, doing a good job adding these context, laying the foundation, if you will, to start telling the story, which is all about, the fungus, right? First, in concept, doesn't seem to be likely taking over humans, but with real world references such as the climate change and such like that, it seems to be believable that this could happen. And again, this is all becoming a reality within this show. And not only that, they do a pretty good job in the next episode as well, not only for the first episode, but the second episode as well, of adding more scenes for extra context, featuring a brand new scientist / doctor we've never seen in the video game, somewhere in Indonesia, and does a really good job adding, being a part of the show without, taking away the experience or anything like that. Doesn't really bog down the show by any means. I think it really still does a good job setting up the tone, the nastiness even of these fungus, right? The cordyceps. It can be really disgusting if you look up close and stuff like that, because it's something we've actually never paid attention closely in the video game, or at least not given the opportunity to do so, besides seeing, the big bloated guys doing the fungus toss and all that, the big bomb and stuff like that. Those are pretty disgusting on their own, but you don't really see how it takes over the body, what the exact interactions are with the human body. And we get to see a number of that in the first 2 episodes already. So especially the second, of course. And it really sets it up to be just this visceral, gritty, and just this awesome experience overall, which is why I think it's such a doing such a good job, being its own thing, but at the same time respecting the video game franchise, what's already been established, right? So I think it does the best of both worlds, bringing in something new and fresh, but at the same time respecting the original source material that they're working with. So in that sense, I think Neil Druckmann and other staff have done a great job with this product so far anyway. While there is some controversies within that, I'm not going to address that here, but let's get back into the show itself. So these scenes are just well thought out. I think not only that, they're well filmed, choreographed, you name it, right? Cinematography, it really only adds up to the experience as well. The camera angles, just so well done. And, despite, again, following the source material quite a bit, with all the key scenes, such as what happens to Joel and stuff like that, it really does a good job portraying that in that same experience. And, for someone like me, have to relive some of the sad moments and stuff like that. It's tough, right? It's a tough pill to swallow at times, but I think that's the whole point, right? It does a good job making it tough, making it feel like it's such a loss for someone like Joel, right? And so you kind of get to see, how and why and where he winds up as a person and such. And even during the apocalypse, right, you get to see that one extra scene, and it's just like, oh man, that sucks. And of course, it involves with kids, so it's a tough world out there, man, and it makes it really believable. It makes a really good job making that world believable. So that's what I do like about this whole show here. I wanted to also, of course, mention Ellie, right? There's Joel. While he is that gritty old man that we come to understand why he acts like this way so far, there is also Ellie. And I think Ellie so far is well portrayed here as well. I think the actress who is playing Ellie, forgive me for forgetting the name, but from what I can understand, she played a rather significant role, or perhaps memorable role, in the Game of Thrones, and she is putting on the great performance here as Ellie. She just nails the spunkiness, the sort of rashness that Ellie comes off with, and just playing this teenage girl in a post-apocalyptic world. She is just ready to just take action, wants to help, but sometimes forgets her limits, right? So at least so far anyway, and just that has all the Ellie spice to it, and there is a complaint within the fan base, right, that looks aren't entirely nailed here with the characters here, and that's something we can't really just hark on it too much. I feel there's nothing we could do about that. It just can't. It can't be helped, right? That not everything is going to look ideally like close or the same. And so I'm definitely willing to overlook some of those things with some of the looks within the show. There's some characters that just kind of look entirely different, right? Even Joel's daughter is quite different. And that's something I don't really care about too much. It just really depends on the context, the case. It's a case-by-case thing. If it's like an entirely different person or character being portrayed altogether, then it's like, why you're even borrowing that name in the first place. But as long as the actor does the character justice, right, I think that's something I can definitely overlook that in most cases. But in this case here with Joel's daughter, I don't think that's an issue here. And I don't think it's really that much of an issue with the rest of the cast because of how much they nail those roles with flying colors, including the actress for Tess, who is a lovable early character within The Last of Us. She definitely is able to play that tough chick really well. And I believed that it was Tess, despite looking quite different from the video game. But back onto Ellie, she's definitely the important half of The Last of Us, and I definitely can't wait to see more of Ellie as she grows more and more, right? And I want to see more of that progress, and of course her relationship evolving with Joel later on, especially with how these actors are portraying their characters. I think just great. So of course, not only the human characters are portrayed pretty well for the most part. I mean, you even have some of the extras, right, with Robert and stuff like that. Don't really quite see some other things, but they do throw in some other characters, to kind of spice it up a little bit too. Like Marlene's like lieutenant or second in command or right hand man, if you will. I think she is a pretty interesting addition. With the given time she had on screen, and I believe we will see more of her later on once the Fireflies play more of the role here later on, especially during the big finale within The Last of Us. And we all know we all know who played the game knows what happens with the Fireflies, but we gotta get there. And we don't even know if that's even going to happen because you just never know with these portrayals, right? Sometimes they deviate, sometimes they take the route B or something rather than route A, to make things interesting. It really, could possibly distinguish itself from the video game, but we'll have to wait and see. And with the music being offered here so far, it definitely helps really like cement that Last of Us experience, of course. That guitar and stuff like that, it's just really just comes back to that, that nostalgia sort of feeling, right? It definitely has that Last of Us tone to it, the composition, stuff like that. It triggers the Last of Us memories, right, as you play the game. So being treated like this is great. I think the fan service is top notch here. Now we have quite talked about the human side of things, but I want to talk about the cordyceps, right? The infected people, right? I think this time around there is a better emphasis on the infected, right? The monsters, right? The cordyceps infection. There's a huge emphasis on this time around, unlike the video game, which is actually a plus for me over the video game here. So if you wanted more of the monster factor, you're definitely gonna get more of that here, at least so far anyway, even within the first 2 episodes, because there are alternative just takes on key scenes, such as the big house, the first house, right, or the big mansion or whatever, when they supposed to meet up with the Fireflies, as Tess and Joel pick up Ellie, right? There are different things that happen along the way, but it is difficult to say without spoiling things, but I'll try to do my best here. Basically, the scenes that would normally have the military are replaced rather with the infected, which is fantastic. I think I think it really shows how terrifying these creatures are. This whole thing, this whole situation, how terrifying is that? It's just a nice, refreshing thing to see. It's it could be a different experience for some people. Mileage may vary, sure, but I think in my opinion, it's for the better. I like the monsters, or rather than the humans, right? When it comes to monster films, you want to always see more of the monster. Well, we're definitely getting that here, which is, the Last of Us live action series. Who would have thought, right? And yeah, there are some disgusting things that come along with that. So I think also I have to say, the way they portray the infected are fantastic too, especially the clickers. The clickers are just molded so well with that practical effects, the makeup, the costumes, the suits and everything. It's hard to say, right, what's CGI, what's practical and stuff like that, but they felt so real, and the emotions that the actors were playing as clickers were fantastic as well. I mean, they could be the same ones who did the motion capturing during the video game. I mean, they could be the same exact people, but here they did a really good job making those clickers just real, and it just adds to that intensity of those scenes, right? When they finally have to sneak around the clickers, man, it's so radical, it's so awesome. It even portrays like some of the realistic aspects of those situations where, maybe someone you think would be proficient with the gun is suddenly just gonna go juggle around the bullets and stuff like that, because it's just so scary. There's so much pressure. A lot of those times that person dies, or it costs somebody their lives, because that's just how it goes, unfortunately. So it's just really all the more visceral, this whole experience is, everything so far. And I almost forgot to mention, these episodes, the first one anyway, was like 1.5 hours almost. I was like, wow, that's actually really cool to really help establish the story and everything. And then the second one was 1 hour. So hopefully that stays consistent, to able to tell, stories in the right amount of time and in the right places. So hopefully that keeps up as well. So I really do like it overall. I think it really nails the tones, the nuances, just those high notes that Last of Us had, and then sometimes adds some, right? With all those contextual scenes, it really just helps it all come together so far. And I'm just really rooting for it at this point to be continuing that same consistent sort of quality so far with, with the 2 episodes. And so I have to, so far, I would like to give this thing honestly a 10 out of 10. Not only portrays a video game, it does something fresh in a way, fresh enough so that, it's something new, but it also keeps the experience just so much intact. It's of what made Last of Us so distinguishable in the first place, despite, back then, many people would call it just like a zombie movie, and stuff like that. But I don't know, it just somehow nails it to be something so much distinguishable of its own in comparison to a lot of these zombie apocalypse type of movies. So it's just so visceral. I think it does a good job. The actors did a great job, and it just nails it so well. And I like to see more of that, right? Hopefully it nails all the key scenes, right, like it has so far. And the show just continues to be how it is, right? Like, just that quality is just so high right now. It's on such a high note right now. So definitely a 10 out of 10. And yeah, so I kind of want to talk about some spoilers now. So here we go. So there are a couple of scenes that I wanted to talk about, like the beginning, right, where the daughter, goes over to the neighbor's house, tries to borrow a movie, and then you see the grandma going all like, it really adds to that tone, right? It definitely borrows from some of the horror movies that we've seen over the years, including the I think it was like Jordan Peele or something like that. His movies kind of go along with that sort of same tone-ish, and other directors, of course, right, with their modern horror movies. That scene with the grandma, like, I don't know, man, you can just feel it, including that dog, right, man. It's just it's awesome, man. And I think that whole scene with the truck, right, like the camera angle and everything, it's purposefully limited so that you can see that how the characters sort of feel, right? It's claustrophobic. It's just so tunnel visioned. It's makes it all the more just a very distinguishable experience, right? It's such a memorable experience, including like the plane crashing. Like, it's unbelievable, man. And the beginning of it is just it's tough to see again Joel's daughter go, man. And it's just there are some key differences, right? Like the soldier was wearing I think a gas mask or something, but this time around it's just no gas mask, right? Things like that I don't really mind, as long as the key scenes are nailed just right, And I think that the actress for Joel's daughter did a really good job just doing everything what happens with the daughter, man. It's again it's so tough to see how Joel loses her, and you just feel it right here, and you get to see why Joel feels that way throughout his time with the apocalypse, and he's got the watch and everything, man. It's got all the key details, and then you have some of the extra scenes I was talking about early, right? I wanted to talk about this one where it involved that kid, right? He's just trying to just survive, and then gets to one of the centers, right? Like a daycare center, or a former daycare center. It's like the base for the military, right? Or Fedra, I think it was called. And basically, they try to take the kid in, but they scanned the kid and he's infected. So they basically took him out, while making some false promises. They had to, right? Just to keep him distracted. And later on, that kid just gets, he passes away, and Joel has to be the one to throw his body into the fire. It's that stuff is just, man. because that's something you've seen in the video game, you know, in the background, but now you get to kind of see it in the foreground. It's like, oh man, you're forced to see that, and Joel has to take it in too, in a way, I guess. I'm pretty sure the first time he just had to get used to it, you know, and so that's why he just kind of did it on the inside in that sense. But man, that scene was tough. And then you have, like, you know, some of the scenes with extra scenes also with like Tess getting beat up with the car battery situation, and then, well, later on, we kind of get to see a little more of the relationship between Joel and Tess, right? They seem to have somewhat of a romantic involvement, at least to an extent. Obviously, you get to see that, you know, Tess is the brains, Joel is the brawn. You know, you kind of get to see that sort of dynamic go in a way, and then there's the stuff with the fireflies, how they picked up Ellie, and then later on in episode 2, we got to see the whole thing with the clickers. Man, that was really cool. Unfortunately, of course, Tess was bitten somewhere in that event. And then they get to the big mansion. And this time around, I think, you know, in the game, Fedra was shooting them up, I think, right? I think that's what happened. But either way, they were laying on the ground dead, right? Either the infected or Fedra. Maybe it might have been the infected in that scene too in the video game. But here in this case, one of them was infected, and then they attacked, and then stuff like that, and you know, they all kind of got wiped out, and then it was revealed to them that Tess is infected, right? And then showing that Ellie is special, right? She's somehow immune to the effects of the fungus, right? The cordyceps. While, you know, it's not necessarily like not there, it's inside Ellie for sure, but it's not somehow not taking over her brain and such like that, her body. So that's like one of the special things about you know, people like Ellie, right? They just don't get taken over for some reason, and so that's essentially what makes her special, and that's what Tess was kind of there for, unfortunately, to just show that, you know, she got something going on, so Joel has to be the one to take her to the main Firefly base and such like that. So Tess made the ultimate sacrifice. She had nowhere else to go, pretty much. So she chose to stand her ground, make most out of her sort of situation, and, you know, wanted to at least redeem herself because of all the shitty things that herself and Joel has done, whether they were together or separate, you know, in their lives. But, you know, at some point she wanted to do something to redeem it, and this was, I guess, the opportunity to do so. But right before she was able to make that sacrifice, right, all the infected were coming in, and then you have the one just kind of like looking at Tess, and then just like, you know, giving her pretty much the kiss of death, essentially. And then you see the cordyceps just coming in and just go, you know? So that itself was pretty gross. I don't know, you know, it definitely was unnecessary objectively, because you already see how the infection spreads, right? Just biting through the necks, right, essentially. But this one was, for some reason, giving her lip to lip or mouth to mouth rather than again, you know? I don't know what was that about. I guess they want to be dramatic with it before she died, but she was able to light the Zippo, and then poof, you know, with the gasoline and everything, explosion. So see, that was different with the video game, because you know, now Fedra was coming in and shot her up, and instead of the infected kind of overrunning the place. So and also there's a new concept here being introduced here, that the fungus, right, is linked somehow throughout the whole place, right, of, what was it, Massachusetts or something, or Boston, whatever. It somehow is able to network itself throughout the whole infection. So if you were to step on a fresh patch of the fungus, it feels it, so it knows where you are exactly, and it can send the infected runners to, well, go after you essentially and eliminate the threat, all in all. So it's kind of an interesting concept, but we'll see how that goes, because it's like, well, that means they are gonna pop up no matter where. But I guess they established that you have to step in a fresh patch instead of a dead one. You know, you're gonna see Joel hitting it with the gun, the stock of the gun, boom, you know, crumples. All right, we're good, right? So it's only when it's fresh, right? So there are parts that are dying off, but it continues to spread throughout different places. So that's, you know, the concept being introduced here. That's definitely entirely new here in the live action show. While in the video game, I mean, it's really half and half with the infected, of course, and then the military and like all the other like human characters and such like that, human factions, if you will. So it's definitely a new, fresh take. Let's see how well that fares throughout the show. So we have yet to kind of like fully see like the power or the how OP it is, you know, as one would say, and you know, will that ruin the show? We'll have to see about that, right? Because plot holes from there can be introduced as well. So, you know, we'll see how that plays out, and what will that mean for Fedra, right? Are they going to be as much of a threat? Well, I mean, I guess in a way they shouldn't be, right? Because this is all about the infection. What causes the whole thing in the first place, and that's the infection. But I get it, you know, they're trying to show that also people are like bad and there are monsters themselves, I guess, in a way. So it's kind of like that cliche within the zombie apocalypse sort of type of show or franchise or whatever it is, that, oh, humans are, you know, also monsters of themselves, something they should fear rather than the monsters themselves. So that's essentially it for the first 2 episodes that I wanted to really talk about anyway, other than there was that really cool scene in the beginning of episode 2 with the doctor, right, in Indonesia. She was like, you know, dissecting it. You can see how it interacts with the body. Ooh, you know, I got chills from that. So that was pretty awesome. So yeah, with all that said, it's still a 10 out of 10 so far. And I'm definitely looking forward to more of that. So that's all I got for Last of Us, the live action series on HBO Max. I definitely will look forward to more of that. Again, that's pretty much it for the Last of Us review. It's really something awesome. I think you know, despite the stuff before it coming out, like, oh, we're trying to not be like the video game and stuff like that, you know, it's really feeling like the video game and then some. So yeah, I think it's a treat, man. It's a absolute treat to be a part of. So yeah, I really do like it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video as well. Hope you found it informative or entertaining to some sorts. What do you guys think of The Last of Us? Leave it in the comment section below with the spoilers and everything. And yeah, so what do you guys think of it, man? Are you guys looking forward to more of it? Are you guys worried about The Last of Us, how it's going to end up and stuff like that? Especially when it gets to, you know, part 2, right? Even if it fires all cylinders in the first part, what about part 2, right? That's going to be the big one, I think. But we'll have to get there first. So I'll definitely look forward to more of that. So anyways, thank you very much. And now I will see you all in the next video.